Well, President Biden moving full steam ahead with policies that he used to vociferously criticize. On Tuesday, the president announced a sharp increase in tariffs on a variety of Chinese imports, including electric vehicles, semiconductors, solar panels, and advanced batteries. It's part of the administration's broader effort to protect American industries from competitors in China. Now, Biden wrote on X, quote, "China is determined to dominate these industries. I'm determined to ensure that America leads the world in them." But this is what Biden said in 2019 after former President Donald Trump increased tariffs up to 25% on many Chinese goods and other foreign goods as well. Quote, "Trump doesn't get the basics. He thinks his tariffs are being paid by China. Any freshman econ student could tell you that the American people are paying his tariffs. The cashiers at Target see what's going on. They know more about economics than Trump." Biden had previously pledged to remove some of Trump's tariffs, but now he's officially endorsing maintaining tariffs on over $300 billion worth of Chinese goods put in place by Trump back in 2018 and 2019, now taking them even further. This is how Trump reacted to Biden's change of tune.
Electric vehicles that Biden is pushing down everybody's throat, even though people don't want them. He wants to put a big tariff on China, which is a suggestion that I said, where have you been for 3.5 years? They should have done it a long time ago. But they've also got to do it on other vehicles, and they have to do it on a lot of other products, because China's eating our lunch right now. And they went away from what I was doing. They're eating our lunch, so they have to do it on much more than electric vehicles. And they have to get going fast, but it should have been done 3.5 years ago. I did it. I started.
In his afternoon speech, President Biden made sure to hit back at Trump's broader approach, calling out Trump's proposal to impose a 10% tariff on all imported goods from all countries to help lower the U.S. trade deficit.
Instead, China imports from America barely budged. And now Trump and the MAGA Republicans want across-the-board tariffs on all imports from all countries if reelected. Well, that would drive up costs for families on an average of $1,500 per year each year. It simply doesn't get it.
If Trump's elected, he also plans to impose a tariff on up to 60% on all Chinese imports and 100% tariff on all cars manufactured outside of the U.S. So it does seem like there's two parts of this. One is the question of Biden's hypocrisy, saying one thing when Trump was proposing the policy and another thing now. And the second is what actually is the most advantageous policy here for the two goals. One, getting Americans access to affordable EVs, and then two, the kind of background or maybe foreground environmental interests in doing so.
Right, which I'm seeing a lot of criticism of this policy, which, as you just pointed out, is a continuation, is a policy both presidents have supported. Doing these tariffs, which prevent people from getting access to the Chinese electric vehicles, and then also probably presumably end up making U.S. electric vehicles more expensive, because if the makers here don't have to compete, or you're making the foreign ones more expensive, then they could raise their prices. Look, I think two things are being a little bit conflated here. Like, Biden was frankly right the first time that very basic economics lessons are skeptical of tariffs as a good idea, because they end up making things more expensive, raising prices, making it harder for consumers to get goods. Now, so the economic case, I would say, is very weak. Now, there's a different and separate, like, national security case being made that, China is pernicious for a variety of reasons and we need to compete with them. But we should not, so people have to make that case, say, well, this is why we have to do something about China. Not like, try to smuggle that into, like, this would be better for, like, the electric vehicle market. Well, is it better for the people buying the electric vehicles here? Not really. So I think a better argument, or like at least I saw Josh Barrow, who writes about economics, saying this. Why, if China is the problem, well, then what is the U.S. doing to support or have better trade relations with other countries that could make or supply these products that we have, that we have good relations with? What are we doing to build up, to foster that kind of trade, rather than just saying China bad and going down this pathway?
Sure. I mean, one big question is, why is it that America is so uncompetitive when it comes to making electric vehicles? One argument is that the American car market has decided to only create luxury EVs. So American EVs are out here costing about $30,000 minimum and upward from that astronomically, whereas China is managing to make these $10,000 SUVs, largely because they have not focused on the luxury market the way that American manufacturers have. They focused on a much more cost-affordable vehicle. Now, why is that? Do we need to have a tariff system to encourage American manufacturers to provide EVs for the average car consumer, as opposed to just making Lexus electric vehicles? Is the only way to do that by diminishing the ability for China to import cars here? Or does the fact that Chinese EVs become more available create the very incentive that we want for American manufacturers to finally make cars that are affordable for most Americans?
Right. I would think the latter, which is why this is, I think, a very troubling policy. And and then it's just not the electric vehicles; it's semiconductors and everything else. And again, I understand the appeal of having more of industrial production in the U.S. But if you look at the CHIPS Act, which everybody was so excited about, if you look at our factories actually being built here, you're finding out that even with the tremendous subsidies to do it, companies are deciding it's not profitable enough in America. So I have this I guess middle ground view that, okay, I understand the problems with China, but does that mean everything has to be built here when you can't make it happen if it's just way too expensive? So are there other countries that we have better relationships with where they could similarly have cheap production situations going on that are beneficial to emerging economies and so on, and not have it be China? Okay, fine, but we obviously can't just do it all here.
Well, this is difficult because it is true that for Americans to really get the cost benefit of how inexpensive Chinese EVs are, they would have to be manufactured in North America. But this is where we get back to some of the inconsistency, not just by Joe Biden, but by Donald Trump. Trump says that if China were to start to try to build car manufacturing plants in Mexico, he would put enormous tariffs on any cars imported that were Chinese made from Mexico. So it really does seem like both candidates here are putting American consumers in the position where they basically cannot buy an electric vehicle. More hypocrisy from Biden because he claims to care about the environment and claims to care about this just green transition. But instead, the only option, I cannot stress this enough, the middle tier luxury EVs in the United States are priced at $50,000. They're just not accessible to most people.
Yeah, and so many political figures we've heard from, Pete Buttigieg and Jennifer Granholm, the Energy or Commerce Secretary. She's in one of those positions. She was formerly my governor of Michigan, so in my heart, that's always the role she has. Talking about, just get that's the solution to all the higher gas prices. Get an electric vehicle. Well, Biden's making it harder to get an electric vehicle because you've got to really get the affordable ones from China. And every time a politician on either party proposes a tariff, fundamentally what it is I want to buy something, they're willing to sell it to me, and you, the government, are coming in and saying, we would like to make this purchase more expensive.
And I do get caring about the domestic car manufacturing market, but again, why have they artificially constrained what they've chosen to adopt for the American consumer?
Seems very muddled. More Rising right after this.